Hello, I am Chris Lee of Southeastern 14, here to preview and predict 5 SEC baseball series for this weekend. The games start, two of them start on Thursday, the 25th, and then 3 other series start on Friday. There's 2 other series, too, that we've done in a separate video. That is Florida and Arkansas, and South Carolina and Kentucky. So we will be talking about Missouri at Tennessee, Alabama at Ole Miss, Georgia at Texas A&M, Mississippi State at Vandy, and Auburn's trip to LSU. Before we go there, a reminder, our channel brought to you by BetOnline, your number one source for all your summer sports this season, from MLB, golf, NBA, and NHL playoffs. All the latest stats, news, scores available available to follow your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website today. Use your mobile device to get in on all the action. Bet online where the game starts. Well, we will start in Knoxville on Thursday. We'll do the 2 Thursday series first. Missouri travels to Tennessee. This is the matchup of Tony Vitello against his alma mater. Missouri is 6-11 on the road. Tennessee is 27-2 in Lindsey Nelson Stadium. Let's talk about Tennessee's pitching versus Missouri's hitting. Missouri's got some younger guys who are coming on. Brock Daniels has hit well lately. Jackson Beeman, Jackson Lovich have been productive. Trevor Austin is a known commodity and experienced hitter. But beyond that, not been great. This is a bottom of the lineup that's been easy to pitch to. The guy to watch may be Danny Corona, the Wake Forest transfer who started for Wake last year. He's played some first, has not hit very well, but he did hit a home run in a midweek game, so maybe that gives him some confidence, and he starts to hit the way he's capable. That would help Missouri a lot. For Tennessee, that rotation has been pretty good. Drew Beam's been good, not great, but very good. Certainly a top 10 starting pitcher in the league, in my opinion. Xander Sechrist, their third guy, is quality. Friday nights, they've done some weird stuff there. They've gone A.J. Causey to start some games. At other times, they've gone Chris Stamos as kind of an opener, but they will probably mix and match on Friday night. And their bullpen, they've used a lot of right-hander Nate Snead. They've used a ton of lefty Kirby Connell lately to bridge big gaps in innings. Aaron Combs has been good out of the bullpen. It's maybe not Tennessee's bullpen of the last couple of years, but it's certainly a good one. The Vols, not a great pitching team, I guess, by Tennessee standards the last couple of years, but certainly a pretty good one. I think most people would trade places with Tennessee on the pitching side. Certainly just about anybody would trade places with the Vols on the lineup side. I run a runs created per 27 outs formula, and Tennessee's got of its starters 6 guys create 11 runs or more per 27 outs, and that's just the starters. They got guys off the bench that produce like that too. Second baseman Christian Moore has been as hot as anybody lately. He and Blake Burke have been battling for the team's all-time home run lead. Moore hit 3 home runs in that clinching game against Kentucky last weekend. Missouri's pitching has been tough at times. It's not a staff that maybe goes 12 deep with great arms, but they've got 5 or 6 guys who can pitch a little bit. And I think the key game in this series will be Saturday. Actually, it'll be Friday's game, game 2. Lefty Javin Pimentel has been their toughest starter so far. He keeps the ball out of the air, at least out of inside the park. His home run rate about 1%, which is outstanding in this day and age of college baseball. They've got some quality bullpen arms. They've got Daniel Whistler and Ryan Magic. They might have enough to win a game. Again, circle that middle game, because if Missouri stacks the arms together, or if they maybe get in a close game in a game 1 or game 3, Whistler and Magic are good enough to eat some innings and keep it close. Still, look, it's Lindsey Nelson Stadium where the Vols are 27-2. Tennessee's going to win the series. You'd be crazy to pick otherwise. But could Missouri steal a game? I could see a scenario in a game 2 where it's close and Missouri does just enough. But still, I think Tennessee a favorite to win the series outright, certainly, and maybe to sweep. The other Thursday night series, we've got Alabama traveling to Ole Miss, and Alabama's 3-7 on the road. Ole Miss is 16-8 at home, and Alabama's hitting Gage Miller, the JUCO transfer, has been one of the better hitters in the league so far. He's cooled off a little bit lately, but he's had a really nice year. Freshman shortstop Justin LeBron has been really, really good for the Crimson Tide. Probably the second best freshman hitter in the league so far, behind Gavin Grahovac at Texas A&M. Mark Etheridge and I were having that discussion on Twitter last night. But Alabama's lineup, you got a lot of guys in there that have played a lot of college ball. TJ McCants, the Ole Miss transfer, has cooled off a little bit lately, but he's a power speed guy. 12 home runs, 11 steals. Ian Petritz from Maryland, lefty, has been good. Evan Slate, the transfer from Rutgers. A lot of guys who played a lot of college ball. Matt Gassetti, their catcher, Will Hodo, Bryce Eblin. Those guys have been in Alabama a little bit. Gassetti, of course, started his career at Florida. So this is a lineup that's quality from top to bottom. Not a lot of guys that are super easy to pitch around. Maybe not a lot of superstars outside of Gage Miller, but a lot of good hitters in there and a lot of guys who played a lot of ball. Ole Miss pitching's been an issue. Probably Ole Miss's best guy is Liam Doyle, who's their number 2 guy. He's a Coastal Carolina transfer and a lefty. And Alabama's got a lot of lefties in the lineup, so that may be something to watch. He's got a 38% strikeout rate. Now, the problem comes with the rest of that Ole Miss staff. Mason Nichols, Braden Jones, Mitch Morell have been pretty good, but beyond that, nobody in that bullpen has been consistent, and really neither the rest of the rotation has either. JT Quinn is back. He started for Ole Miss at times. I don't know what kind of role we'll see him in this weekend, but I think Alabama's got a decided edge when it comes to its hitting versus Ole Miss's pitching, at least based on what we have seen so far. Now, Ole Miss's hitting's been a little better than its pitching. Andrew Fisher, the Duke transfer, 14 home runs. Ethan Leger's got 12. Jackson Ross has got 7. And Will Furness, who seems like he's been playing a little bit more lately, he's got 6 home runs. So this is a team that can hit some home runs at Swayze Field. The problem for Ole Miss, the bottom of the lineup can be pitched to. Alabama's pitching is a little shaky, too, with some injuries. Greg Ferrone, their Friday guy, Louisville transfer, has been good. Zane Adams shut out Arkansas a couple of weekends ago. I think went 8 innings in that one. So they've got some guys who've been good, and they've got Braylon Myers out of the pen who's been really good. But beyond that, a lot of guys who pitched, but not necessarily pitched super well. All right, your prediction. Ole Miss has been good at home, 16-8. Alabama's not been good on the road, 3-7. This one's almost a toss-up. Playing on the road's been treacherous. I'm still going to go Alabama. The schedule's been brutal. Ole Miss hasn't been easy either. But I'm going to go with the better team here. Ole Miss has not been dominant at home. I will take Alabama to win the series, though certainly a sweep seems like a lot to bite off. All right, let's move on to the Friday series, at least the ones that start on Friday. And this next one, I can make the case as maybe the most interesting series of the weekend because these two teams can just flat out hit. 2 of the best 3 offensive teams in the conference. Tennessee would be the other one. And so just for that case, if you like offense, I could make the case that this is the series you're going to watch this weekend, and it may be under any circumstance. Clemson actually fell to Georgia in a midweek game. I'll get to the impact of that in just a minute. But, yeah, this is an interesting Georgia team. It's 3-7 on the road, so not great away from home. A&M, in the meantime, been just dominant, 26-1 at Bluebell Field in College Station. I mean, tough to beat the Aggies anywhere, anytime, but certainly been tough to beat them in College Station. Georgia's hitting. Charlie Condon is going to get a lot of run. He is the best hitter in the country, in my opinion. He's got 26 home runs, might be the first pick of this summer's Major League Baseball draft, but it's not just Charlie Condon. Georgia's got 4 other guys, Fernando Gonzalez, Slade Alford, Colby Branch, Dylan Goldstein. All those guys have got double-digit home runs and slugging percentages 550 or north. Gonzalez at 377 is the lowest on-base guy in that lineup. It's not often you see guys that get on base at the clip that Georgia's do, in addition to the power that the Bulldogs hit with, but that's the kind of lineup that A&M is going to be challenged to pitch to. As for the pitching, Texas A&M's Ryan Prager has been one of the best in the league, if not in the country. Lefty who came back from injury has been dominant. Finally got touched up a little bit. I think it was his last start, but he's in that conversation. In fact, I would say starting pitching conversation, best two in the league right now, probably Hagen Smith of Arkansas and Ryan Prager at A&M number 2. Now, there are other two guys, Tanner Jones and Justin Lampkin. If you want to pick a weakness with this team, those guys have not been consistently great. Lampkin got hit pretty hard, I think, last weekend, and Jones has been up and down. But their bullpen, my goodness, they've got guys out of their bullpen. They got a lot of them, but three guys in particular, Evan Aschenbeck, who is an a reliever who throws a lot of innings. Shane Sadeo, Chris Cortez, three guys who pitched a lot of ball in this league and have pitched really well this year. In fact, all three of those guys have maybe had their best years as college pitchers this season. I have to fact check that, but seems like they've all taken their games up a notch since last year, particularly Chris Cortez. And another thing about this team, we don't talk about defense a lot, but A&M can really defend. Left side of the infield's really good. Their outfielders are athletic. They can make plays. So if you put the ball in play against these guys, and A&M does strike out a lot of guys with that pitching staff, you got a defense that can really go and get it, especially in the outfield, and just so sound fundamentally on the infield too, from what I have seen. All right, let's talk about A&M's hitting versus Georgia's pitching. I don't think I would trade Gavin Grahovac, Jace Lavalette, Braden Montgomery, Jackson Appel, who's their catcher. He kind of gets lost in the shuffle with those other guys. I don't think I'd trade those guys for any other foursome in the country. They walk a ton. Hayden Schott is the only single-digit walk rate guy in their starting lineup, and that's 9%. So these guys not only hit it hard when they make contact, but they do not chase a lot out of the zone. They make you give them a pitch. And that's kind of been the way A&M's approached it for a few years now. That's why they're so tough. They milk counts, and they hit it hard when they hit it, and they are just a walking nightmare, literally speaking, to pitch to right now. The Georgia's pitching, I've kind of undersold this year. That is not the bread and butter of Georgia's team, but nonetheless, it's probably a little bit better staff than I've given it credit for. Now, there's no stars on this staff, and I think sometimes that's why their pitching gets lost in the shuffle a little bit. Leighton Finley, Charlie Goldstein are serviceable starters for sure. They pitched a lot of ball. Goldstein's been out. He's a lefty who was Georgia's best arm last year. He's back now. We'll see what kind of role he slots into as he comes back and eases into a bigger role. But Goldstein's a guy that in the past could give you 5 or 6 innings in a start and has done it several times. Their bullpen is kind of underrated. They don't have a dominant arm, I would say, out of the bullpen, but Colton Smith's been good at times. He can go deep into games. Brian Zayden, I think the Penn transfer, has been really good. I may have butchered the name there. And Jarvis Evans has also pitched well at times. So Georgia's got enough arms with the way that it hits the ball. Again, you don't have to win games 3-2, although Georgia's won a couple of those lately to win games. You just need to throw pitches and throw strikes and keep the other team from going crazy, and that lineup's good enough to win. So Georgia's pitching staff, not great, but certainly good enough and probably a little better than I've realized through most of the year. All right, predictions. I'm taking A&M because who are you going to take to beat A&M at home? Maybe the Texas Rangers. That probably would be a team I would pick to take a series in College Station right now. Other than that, nobody geographically close or in college ball that's going to beat them. I will take the Aggies to win, but certainly going to be an entertaining series to watch. And boy, if Georgia can go get a couple of wins there, that will make headlines and probably get Georgia the respect that I think it already deserves. Also starting on Friday night, Mississippi State and Vandy in Nashville. Vanderbilt's 23-4 at home. State is 5-6 on the road. Let's talk about State's hitting against Vandy's pitching. Dakota Jordan is hands down the best bat in this series. He is a first-round talent, a future major league outfielder. Other than that, they've got some good bats. I think Mississippi State's lineup, it's been a thing that I've talked about a lot of this year. I think it is a better lineup than maybe it is produced. Hunter Hines, Amani Larry, guys that I know can hit better and have hit better. than they are this year. I'm not saying they're bad. They haven't been bad at all, but both of them probably hit better last year than they hit this year. Johnny Long, their catcher, hits at times. David Mershon, their shortstops, had a really nice year at the bat. And Connor Hijack, I think is how you pronounce his name. The center fielder is also doing really well. Got an on-base percentage of 422. It's slugging close to 600. This is a team that defends pretty well too, and I think he's part of that. So not a lineup with a lot of easy outs, but not one with a lot of star power. Beyond Dakota Jordan, who again is really good and would probably be getting more publicity if not for the hitters in this league. And I don't know that I've ever seen top end hitting in the SEC in terms of guys who are going to be major league stars one day at a level any more than what we're seeing right now. Vandy's pitching is going to be interesting. Carter Holton is a guy that I think they will throw on Friday. He's been their number one starter. They have moved him around a little bit here and there just because of a lot of Thursday series, trying to keep him fresh. But he should be back in that Friday night number one spot. Bryce Cunningham there too has been off and on. Some weeks he's looked terrific. Some weeks, especially on the road, he's looked very ordinary. Has given up a lot of home runs this year. That's been the issue for Cunningham. When he keeps the ball in the park, he's been dominant. So two pretty good starters at the top for Vandy. Devin Futrell is probably going to start game 3. He's a lefty who has not really pitched in about a month. He did start Vanderbilt's midweek game, but he threw 18 pitches, and they pulled him after that. I think presumably to try to keep him fresh for a game 3 start this weekend, which, again, that'll happen on Sunday. Now, Vanderbilt's got some issues with pitching. J.D. Thompson, who was their 3 starter and has been their midweek, got suspended for a substance issue in terms of looked like maybe mixing sunscreen and rosin, sounds like. So he is going to be out this weekend. They've also moved some things around. Grayson Carter, who started at times, is kind of now their closer. He's a hard-throwing righty, bumps it at over 100, keeps the ball in the park. Ethan McIlvain, one of their better relievers, got hurt last weekend, a back flare-up. We'll see if he's available this weekend. Don't know that. But they've got some pretty good freshman arms. Miller Green, Brendan Cyber, thrown pretty well. Brian Ginter, now their setup guy, left. He's been pretty good. So Vandy has got some pitching injuries, but still enough in the tank, I think, to get the Commodores through the series this weekend. You'd like to have more if you're Tim Corbin, but there's still a good bit there. All right, Vandy's hitting. Not a lineup that's going to get a lot of headlines, not really a star in there. Troy Leneve is probably their best hitter, a lefty guy with some power who has issues staying healthy. Other than that, just a lot of guys up and down the lineup. They'll put the ball in play. They'll steal bases. They'll bunt. They'll run the doubles. Jonathan Vastine, their shortstop, has been pretty good lately. But not a lineup that has got the star power of some others in this league. But a lineup that doesn't really have like a huge hole in it either. So that'll be the challenge for Mississippi State's pitching, which I think, speaking of underrated commodities, I don't know that there are 2 more underrated starters in this league than Cal Stevens and Gerangelo Saintja is a tandem. Saintja, of course, a switch pitcher. You heard me right. A guy that throws righty and lefty. Both those guys have been terrific. Saintja's got an ERA of 3.5. And Steffens is 2.5. He's a Purdue transfer, a right-hander. And the 3, they've gone Brooks Auger lately. They've gone Evan Sierra. They've even gone Carson Ligon. I think he's been maybe more of a midweek guy. But Nate Dom, too, if he's healthy, and I haven't checked on that, would be a 3. In fact, if Nate Dom's healthy, that threesome is probably a top 3 or 4 tandem in the league. Might be anyway. But he would really change the shape of that rotation if he's healthy and can go. But I don't think he has pitched in a couple of weekends. Their bullpen's pretty good too. Lefty Tyler Davis has been really, really good. ERA of 171 in 21 innings. Cam Schulke is their closer. I think he had a long stint the other day to get them a save. He can go extended innings if they need him to. They've got some other guys, Nolan Stevens, Tyson Harden, good guys. So State 2 is a team that's got a really good top of the rotation and a couple of studs at the top too. Predictions. I think these are two very evenly matched teams. I think on a neutral field, it's probably a toss-up. I think Vandy's in the middle of exams, and it's a program that's been known to struggle at times at that time. But Vandy at home, 23-4. Um, Vanderbilt's higher ranked, higher in the computers. I really think these teams are closer than perceived. Again, I think it's very even matchup, maybe the most even in terms of style and ability that we'll see all weekend. But I will take Vandy by virtue of being the home team and go there. All right, last series I'm going to talk about, and again, we did the other two in separate videos, but Auburn at LSU. Auburn is 2-16 in the SEC. It has played what are debatably the best 6 teams in the league so far. It is 1-9 on the road. LSU is 18-7 at home, and I think an interesting team. Auburn's hitting. Ike Irish and Cooper McMurray. Irish is one of the best hitting catchers in the league. McMurray is a first baseman / DH type, tough to pitch to, big power threats. But injuries, I think, have really hampered Auburn's lineup. I can't find the exact details, but Auburn's got a couple of guys out. Mason Manners, middle infielder, has missed a little bit of time. Can't find what the injury is. And Bobby Pierce, their outfielder, who's been there what seems like forever, hasn't played in a week or two. Those guys didn't play the midweek game, so I presume that Auburn again going to be without a couple of starters. Now let's get to LSU's pitching. And this is where it gets interesting. Luke Holman has been outstanding. He's been a top 5 starting pitcher in the league. And in fact, I think I said earlier that the pitcher of the year discussion, I mentioned a couple of names. Luke Holman should be on that list. Absolutely. He did get hit a little bit last week in what was probably his worst start of the year, but he is an unquestioned ace. And then outside him, it's just a question of what you get. Gage Jump has been really good at times, super gifted guy. Man, you just never know with LSU's pitching staff. It is really talented. I think people thought that this would be maybe even the strong point of this team, but Thatcher Hurd has not been the guy that they hoped, but he shows up certain weekends and is really good. You got some guys in the bullpen I like. Griffin Herring's been outstanding. Nate Hackenhusen has pitched better lately. He was just a great piece for that bullpen last year. Gavin Guidry hadn't pitched a ton, but has pitched decently well when he's pitched. They've got 12, 13 guys who can throw. Christian Little's a guy that pitched a couple of scoreless innings in a midweek. Talented kid. Maybe you tap into something there. I feel like that's the story of the LSU staff. They got a lot of guys that have got potential, but it just hasn't been what you'd hope so far. And look, some of that has probably got to do with schedule. What they played so far: Mississippi State, Florida, Arkansas, Vandy, Tennessee, but Missouri, which they won 2 or 3 last weekend. Some good hitting teams in there, and just some good teams, period. So I don't know. LSU, sometimes your pitching clicks later in the year. That's just something to keep an eye on with LSU. At times it started to look a little bit better. We'll see what we get out of the Tigers this weekend, the LSU Tigers, that is. All right, let's talk about the hitting. That's also been a little bit of a disappointment. Jared Jones has been LSU's best hitter. Hayden Travinski, their catcher, one of the league's better hitting catchers. And Tommy White has not had the Tommy White kind of year that we were expecting, but he's hit the ball better of late, hit a couple of home runs in a midweek game. So if you get a little bit more out of Tommy White, that lineup becomes even tougher to pitch to. As for Auburn's pitching, boy, that's a mess. They've got John Armstrong, who is a side-arming right-handed reliever who's really good, a bulk inning guy. If you're in the 6th inning and you're Auburn and you're Butch Thompson and say you got a 4-3 lead, you can bet if Armstrong hasn't pitched yet, he's probably going to get the ball in that spot and maybe asked to finish out. They've had a couple of injuries. They got Chase Alsop back this week. He went 5 in a midweek game, so I would presume he's unavailable, and another 1 or 2 that I've forgotten at the moment. But in any case, I presume they'll go Dylan Watts, Tanner Bauman, Carson Myers. Myers, the UAB transfer, the lefty, has probably been the best of the bunch. Not a dominant guy, but keeps the ball in the park, which is hard to do this day and age. Tanner Ballman does that too, but he doesn't throw a lot of innings. So I would presume that's going to be their starting rotation. Watts is a JUCO transfer, but it's just kind of been a mess for Auburn. Cam Tilley's the other guy who got back this week, who's pitched a lot earlier in the year, has been hurt. He came back through 2 in the midweek, so maybe you see him available during the weekend. We'll wait and see. But with Joseph Gonzalez just not returning to the form that he was at before, this just hasn't been the pitching staff that Butch Thompson thought he would be getting this year. And that's one reason Auburn is 2-16 in the league. All right, picks. I think LSU is a team I've said, look out. This team could get hot. The schedule eases up. The RPI is in range to get a regional bid. I think when they get to selection Monday and you're looking at names, if it's, they're not supposed to look at these things, but LSU with its history and tradition, you would think that might get you a little bit of a nod in terms of a favorable pick in terms of making the tournament or not making the tournament. But first, LSU's got to put itself in place to get there. This is a great opportunity for LSU this weekend to beat an Auburn team that is really struggling at home, really struggling anywhere. 14-14 in the SEC in terms of conference record. I will take LSU to win this one at home. We'll be back to recap the series, all these series when they're over. We'll probably do that Sunday night or Monday morning. We may do some reactions here and there after a night's slate of games, depending on how much time I've got. We'll do power rankings on Monday, and we'll be back at it with predictions and previews next weekend. I'm Chris Lee of Southeastern 14, presented by BetOnline. Thank you for watching.